Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Hi there guys, it's Adam Martyn here, and welcome back to another video, and this time, boy, it's a bad time to be right-wing media. It's recently been announced that talktv, which of course was the venture launched by Rupert Murdoch, is going to be eventually taken online. It's not going to have its linear television channel anymore. Now you might be thinking, hang on, talktv hasn't been around on telly a long time, has it? Well, no, only a matter of years, but why is this happening now? Are there some key reasons? What does it mean for this channel, this brand? Well, let's take a little look. Rupert Murdoch's talktv network is to cease broadcasting as a traditional television channel in the summer and move solely online. The network launched in 2022, but has struggled to attract viewers on its linear platform. In contrast, many viewers clipped up from its shows perform well on YouTube, and this comes after a month after its star presenter Piers Morgan also saw his show moved from its terrestrial weekday evening slot to being solely online. Ah yes, Piers Morgan, my favourite broadcaster. But a lot of news channels do have this, you know, they experience this, even the big hitters like BBC and ITV. Clips that get put on YouTube are often consumed a lot more, arguably, than some of the main news bulletins. The only exception might be, say, something like BBC News at 6, which constantly enters the top 50 most watched programmes of the week, you know, with like 4 or 5 million viewers tuning in. Scott Taunton, who's talkTV's president of broadcasting, said in a briefing to staff, 2 years ago, we would have not been brave enough to launch a channel without a linear presence. But audiences of all ages have moved fast, and smartphones are now the primary device where news is consumed. We need to adapt to this as a priority. He added, we are therefore intending that talk comes off linear television from early summer, and our focus will be on streaming. I sort of get what he's saying about not being brave enough to launch without a linear presence, but also, I know audiences move fast, but even 2 years ago, I think launching a fully digital television service, for want of a better word, would have not necessarily been the big gamble. If you were saying 10 years ago, then yeah, maybe launching without linear would have been a gamble whilst smartphone use was still on the rise. But I'd say even as far as 2022, hell, even after like post-pandemic, I think that having launched, you know, fully online rather than having a linear presence wouldn't have been a big gamble that they're making it out to be here. Although I guess it maybe they're looking at demographics, maybe a lot of talkTV's viewer base are still using linear television like some of the older generations maybe. Taunton said clips would continue to be shared through social media, while the company hoped to grow the number of viewers who watch the service via live streaming on televisions. He said there was no doubt over the channel's future, adding it just won't be distributed on linear. So, you know, talktv isn't going completely bust. I mean, I wasn't expecting that anyway, because Rupert Murdoch, the guy who launched and financed all this, you know, he's got, if you know anything about Rupert Murdoch, he's got pretty deep pockets. So they're hoping to live stream on televisions from like an online presence rather than a linear channel. Again, I think in this day and age as like a business model, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. If they clearly have some kind of audience, you know, who consume this content, whether that's via clips or online. So I think doing this, they're trying to cater best to their audience. Piers Morgan Uncensored currently has 2.4 million YouTube subscribers. That was the flagship show. While the channel as a whole, so talktv as a channel, has 812,000. talktv, a venture from News UK, the publisher of The Times and The Sun and Rupert Murdoch's group, that launched in 2022. Last month, Morgan said his show was leaving television to focus on the uncensored YouTube channel, saying that daily fixed TV schedules have been an increasingly unnecessary straitjacket. Now, I'm going to be real with you. I'm not personally a fan of Piers Morgan. I don't click with his style of journalism, of broadcasting, etc., etc. I do think, though, what he says here about TV schedules being fixed make this sort of straitjacket, I think in the context he's talking about, he isn't necessarily wrong. Because even though we as humans, you know, we like routine. We like having, say, our soap operas on at a certain time, our dramas on, the news on at a certain time, 6 o'clock, for example. We like a routine. But in the current landscape of not just television, but media generally, where we have so much freedom of choice, you know, with streaming services and whatnot, and we have the freedom to watch those whenever we like. You know, it's not like you log on to Disney Plus, for example, and it says, oh, you want to watch the new Pixar movie? Well, you can only do that at, say, 6:30. We can watch that whenever we want. The first thing when we get up, the last thing before we go to bed. It's complete freedom in that sense. And I think linear TV, the fact it still, as mentioned, does have this fixed daily schedule in some aspects that can be beneficial, but in a lot of aspects, especially these days, I think a lot of people would argue it serves in the negative. Announcing the news, Taunton reassured employees it was business as usual despite the changes, but did add that there would be a restructure. Over the next few months, the company plans to create a new division called New Studios to produce bite-sized content for brands such as Talk Sport, The Sun, The Times, The Sunday Times, and Virgin Radio. And this whole bite-size approach, again, this is very much what people are consuming in terms of news. A lot of people are turning to clips. I don't sit down and watch the news that often, but when I do, I like to try and watch the full bulletin. I want to get the full scope of what's going on. But I mean, I'll admit, I watch, clips and stuff online or from the BBC News app and stuff, but it's all bite-sized content. It's to reflect the fact that a lot of attention spans are dwindling. We live in the TikTok generation where videos are short and snappy and quick. So I think, again, the fact that they're going for this, they're looking at the market, they're looking at what their audience consume, and they're adapting to that. Because we are proposing to create new studios and change Talk's priorities, we are proposing that there is a restructure so that we can focus our resources and talent on the output we will be creating. In the briefing, Taunton also acknowledged linear channel slots cost us millions a year, and the advertising revenues are never going to materially exceed the cost of being in these distribution slots. Now, this again is a big problem that linear channels are facing, particularly the ones that are funded by commercial advertising. With advertising revenues in a slump and companies are scrabbling to try and figure out how to bolster them back up, occupying linear slots does cost an insane amount of money. We've seen recently ITV publish their financial reports for the last year, and let me tell you, they've made a loss, but that's another video. But to be a linear channel is increasingly difficult, and again, even though I'm not necessarily a fan of Talk TV or watch it or agree with some of its principles, I can acknowledge that the issues they're going through are the same ones that many channels are going through. Murdoch had hoped the network would shake up the broadcasting establishment by offering an opinion-led alternative to the BBC. Its launch followed that of GB News a year earlier. We'll talk more about GB News in a sec, but I think the thing is, yes, the BBC is designed to try and be impartial, so it's not necessarily, as this claims, opinion-led. People like hearing opinions. Talk TV is very much a right-wing channel in that sense, in terms of what a lot of the opinions it peddles and presents. And I'm not denying that there's a right-wing audience, or just an audience generally, to soak that up, because there is. But I think Murdoch's, view of this is going to shake up the broadcasting establishment. I think to launch a linear channel, especially a linear news channel now in the linear space, to make that sort of groundbreaking impact it's just not going to happen, because as we've said, the way that television is changing and adapting. Had this been launched, say, even 25, 30 years ago, then maybe this could have had some real groundbreaking impact. But as of 2024, it was never going to have that same rumble, even when it launched 2 years ago. But then again, Rupert Murdoch is nearly 100, and clearly doesn't know how television works anymore. Whether or not he ever did is to be seen. So before we touch on GB News, because I wanted to talk about them as well, just to add on to the Talk TV stuff. So Talk TV is going to be leaving Freeview, Freesat, Sky and Virgin Media this summer as the broadcaster scales down its distribution on favour of an online-only presence. It suffered from 0 ratings, and its key primetime show, Piers Morgan, is to end. Now, 0 ratings, this happens to a lot of channels. Even sometimes the bigger channels suffer this, like Channel 4 had it a couple of times with some of their programmes. So to touch then on GB News, this got recently announced. They posted a £42 million loss, but it does grow its online audience. Its losses jumped nearly 40% over the last year, but it says it has grown its audience online 5-fold. Pre-tax losses at the broadcaster hit $42.4 million for the year to the end of May 2023, which was up from $30.7 million a year earlier. So in regards to its digital audience, they're claiming its online page views rose 431% to 51.9 million. In comparison, it reached an average of 2.7 million viewers a month, up 17.8% on the year before, but that was only a 0.45 share of linear TV. So again, trying to make a splash on linear TV in the 2020s, I think is just not really going to happen, and I think that figure represents that quite clearly, less than 1% of audience share. And I mean, GB News right from the start has had a lot of controversy. Again, it's a right-wing broadcaster peddling those, views and opinions. Its range of presenters ranged from bad to worse. I mean, some people who really shouldn't have programs. I'm very much against sitting MPs being presenters of programs. Jacob Rees-Mogg as an example. And I'm not just saying that for the Conservatives, I'm saying that across all party lines. I think if you're a serving MP, how can you accurately and dedicate your time to serving your constituents if you also just making constant content for a news channel. Then you've got people like Dan Wootton, who's been booted, and Lawrence Fox, who, if you don't know who Lawrence Fox is, he is by and large a moron. And who's behind GB News? Well, the company, which started broadcasting in 2021, is owned by All Perspectives Limited, a holding company backed by hedge fund millionaire Sir Paul Marshall and investment firm Legatum, amongst others. Sir Paul, speaking last year at a conference in London, was reported on GB News as hitting out at woke capitalism and financial cronyism. Ooh. While GB News almost doubled its revenue, its income was still substantially lower than its losses, reaching 6.7 million. But, the owners are continuing to plough millions into this fledgling broadcaster. And it now owes its parent company $83.8 million when you add it all together. So in response to this, GB News said the company has strong support from its investors and the directors have no reason to believe that the level of these contributions might vary to a significant degree or be recalled before the group has the resources to repay the investment. They said that in accounts filed to Companies House. The business said it had an average of 295 monthly employees during the year, with its wage, social security and pension bill totaling 21.2 million or around 72 grand per head. So, they're saying that online audience is growing, but, those losses, they're bigger loss this year than last year. I'm not by any means saying that GB News or Talk TV are going to go bust anytime soon because, again, as I've said, the matter of the fact is they aren't. The people who run these and started these up or invest in these have so much money. And because they want that foothold in television, they want that influence, they want that position, they're going to keep plowing money as long as they see fit, as long as they think it's worthwhile. So, yeah, be prepared for GB News and Talk TV to stick around for a long time in some kind of form. As mentioned, Talk TV is now going to be solely an online presence. You aren't going to see it on linear television past the summer. GB News, on the other hand, is still going to plough on, it seems, with its linear drive, even though, again, it occupies less than 1% of audience share. But it wouldn't surprise me if in a few years that, too, also descends to being online only. But I want to know your thoughts on this. What do you think about these channels and these, these operating losses and being moved to online and sort of stuff? Do you think online is the best place for them? Do you think they shouldn't have a place on linear television? Let me know all those thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, do leave a like on it. It really helps us out. And do subscribe as well. We'd love to have you aboard here with us. In the meantime, I've been Adam Martyn from AMTV. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show. And a special thank you to Macra, Ethan Carberry-Holt, Bruce Danton, Globe of Reviews, Derek Chambers, Sean Knock, Dord Khan, Liam Domain, Trev Hughes, AJ Mac 200017, Deck KP20, Simon Harrison, Evan Hart 38, and Jen, our AMTV staff members.